Talk about the importance of staying on schedule against Liberty and really kind of getting into a flow offensively, not just with the quarterback, but with you play calling. What was that key on Saturday?
Yeah, one of the big things that we talked about was staying out of third and longs. We had 1 third and long, and that, I believe it was the first drive. And that was a huge thing, just being able to have third and manageable. I think our average third down was 5-point-something yards, which is you're putting yourself in a situation where you can get rid of the ball early, right? You can stay and hold in protection. You can give routes a chance to kind of work those underneath routes and everything. So that was a huge part. We were, the efficiency on first and second down, obviously, that's what tells you how third down is going to be, right? And you're kind of writing the story before third down, which was huge for us.
What did the film show you? Did anything different than what you thought?
I think the first thing is that we play very hard, right? That's the one thing is you can't take away from this group, right, is that they play very hard. And that's kind of the standard that we talked about we have to continue to do. Obviously, there's things that, we can continue to grow on, the penalties and stuff like that, but we can't take that part away. As long as we continue to play hard to that standard, we'll keep moving in the right direction.
And then talk about Georgia Southern. What do you see defensively from them?
I think the biggest thing is that they play hard, right? They fly around to the football. They're a talented group. We still got that taste in from last year, but that's a talented football group. They're probably going to have some guys coming back from injury that we got to see, so we just got to continue to focus on this week of practice.
You guys lost George early in the game on Saturday, but Io really stepped up and had his best performance since coming back. What did you like out of him in that game?
He ran physical. There was a lot of yards after contact with Io. There was multiple plays where he was falling forward for an extra 2 yards. There was one down in the red zone where we handed off the 15-yard line. He stiff-armed someone. I think the biggest thing is that he offered kind of a physical presence that we needed at that specific moment.
How big is it when you guys are able to run the football like you did last Saturday? It just seems like when you guys run the ball, it just opens up everything else for the offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of said this last time, it goes both ways. Like the efficiency of the passes also open up, the run game from the standpoint of that. They're able to be a little looser in those gaps. And the same thing with the run game, right? The biggest thing is that you just got to continue to play complementary football, that if we're going to run the ball, we got to be efficient in the pass game. If we're going to throw the ball, we got to make sure we're efficient, right, running the football when those times come. But I think that was huge of just playing off each other.
How much of an emphasis going into Liberty did you guys put on moving the ball downfield? It seemed like this was probably like the first big glimpse of some explosive plays in the pass game.
Yeah, that was the big thing is that we talked about was yards after contact, and obviously, right, I think we did that. There were some plays that we had in the pass game where people made people miss. There was a lot of transitional blocks right on the edge and the perimeter, but that was a big thing. You have to, we talk about explosive plays all the time in the run game and pass game, and you need both of them, right? You need both those to play off each other.
How similar is Georgia Southern's defense from last year in terms of scheme, but also personnel? Is it pretty similar from what you guys saw last year?
From last year, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's similar from last year. It's interesting because so far every game we've gotten some different stuff. Liberty offered some different stuff that we hadn't seen on tape. Louisville was the same way. Weaver was the same way with some of the stuff that we got in the middle of the field. So I think obviously we have to prepare for that, but at the same time, just like last year, they're going to find their game plan, things that they can think that can expose us that we have to make sure we're ready for.
Coach Chesney said yesterday that this Georgia Southern game last year was probably one of the few that wasn't a what-if game. Like, they came out and they beat you guys. How much has that still lingered around the team as you guys prepare for it this weekend?
I think the biggest thing is I don't necessarily know if it's lingered, but we have to use that as motivation, right? The players, everybody, right? I think we know what happened last year and how we have to come out and prepare and how we have to come up to show up on Saturday. But we're going to use it as motivation. Everybody, there's a lot of people that are returning, there's a lot of people that aren't, right? But the people that were here and part of this is, right, we fully understand what this game is.
Alonzo got into a great rhythm last week. Was that part of why it was just Alonzo and no Matthew Sluka?
Yeah, that was part of it for sure. I think the biggest thing is he was very, very efficient moving the ball. I think the biggest thing with him is that he got rid of the football on time, right? So he got rid of the football early. There was a lot of plays where he was 1, 2, 3 and the ball was gone, right? You put that from a defensive perspective, right? That's hard if you want to decide a pressure or not if the ball's coming out of your hands. So you liked it from the beginning. He was on point. He was very, very accurate. And like you kind of mentioned, is that he was in a rhythm, so we kind of stuck with him.
And then your offensive line played phenomenal. The way you ran the ball, no sacks allowed. Kind of got back to what you were able to do week one. Mm-hmm. Louisville's a different animal. Did you like what you saw from you guys up front?
I loved what I saw up front. I think that unit, from an offensive line, to have 5 guys like that play as hard as humanly possible. It was a hot game, right? It was a little hotter than I think probably the last 3 weeks of fall camp, right? And a lot of people played a lot of snaps up front. Mm-hmm. And for them to constantly, right, be giving everything they had that's what we have to be.
You mentioned that Zoe was able to take some pressure on Saturday. I know the touchdown pass to Landon, he took a hit kind of at the end, but stuck it in there and threw the ball. How important is it to see that out of him now, even though he's still only about 9-ish months off of surgery?
Yeah, and it's, every situation that you're put in that is like, you almost have to go back to day one, and you got to feel comfortable doing that when you're in the pocket. Because there's a lot of, from the mental side of things that goes into of sitting in there and having people rush at you and deliver the football. But if you kind of freeze that specific clip that you're talking about, the last frame, the ball's not even out of his hand before someone's making contact with him. So that's what we have to have. That's the expectations, right? That's part of being a quarterback. And that specific play, he did a really good job with.
Talk about the Liberty game a little bit and just what you saw from film. Were you happy with what you saw when you look back?
You're never happy, right? every game you want to be better than you even played. So it's never perfect, never even up to what you want. But you're happy with a W, and that's all that matters. And I think the defense again, was able to control it, especially in the second half there, and limit the explosives, and obviously got to take the ball away. Didn't find a way to get our hands on the ball, and that's always tough when you finish a game without one. But overall happy. On to the next one. Excited for league to start and get after Georgia Southern.
Did you make a lot of adjustments in the game to what was going on?
A ton, yeah. There's halftime's like all about adjustments. No, I think we did a good job of kind of recognizing what they were doing to attack us, and just intentionality of our players, understanding how they were attacking us. And obviously when the quarterback goes out, it does change the game a little bit, and I think our guys adjusted quickly to how the differences of the quarterbacks were going to impact their offense. And happy with that, happy with the ability to just play hard in that second half and play really physical.
We talked last week about how it's a challenge against that offense because you don't see it a lot, but this one's a little bit different too, where there's a lot of gadgets, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot that goes into this offense. How challenging is Georgia Southern offensively?
Yeah, I mean, another elite head coach that has been an offensive coordinator for years and extremely successful. Obviously was able to become the USC head coach just from a dynamic offense, and then you put Ryan Applin, who I followed right after at Arkansas State, and as good a quarterback as there was in college, and then extremely intelligent and kind of some intricacies that probably followed the Gus Malzahn offense that he played for and Hugh Freeze offense that he played for. So again, some offensive masterminds that definitely are going to stay ahead of the game and keep you off balance. And it's, again, we can't make it a scheme game. We got to let the players play hard and put them in position to be successful.
Post Liberty and yesterday as well, Coach Chesney had a lot of praise for guys on the boundary like Elijah Colt, Justin Eagle, and just what have you seen from them so far? How impressive you've been with their play?
I mean, our pass defense has been very, very good statistically. I think, every time you nitpick a film, there's areas to improve, and we need to increase our ability. I think this group of receivers are as good as we've maybe faced as holistically. So a new challenge ahead, and just getting ready for that.
You mentioned having to adjust once Vasco went out over the weekend. How drastic are the changes in the moment during a game when a quarterback goes out, and making sure you're maybe not focusing too much on that and losing your brand of defense?
Yeah, I mean, don't make it about scheme, right? Just make it about player recognition and kind of understanding what he does well. And, specifically in that game, maybe Vasco is more of the running threat, and then that kid comes in to be more of the RPO off the run game. So I think just understanding of what players do well is more of the adjustment than scheme and calls.
We were talking to Trent a little bit yesterday. You're definitely somebody that's not afraid to show emotion on the sideline or kind of have that fire. Is that something you always have kind of possessed as a coach? Or
no, I've been in the booth forever. But no, I think it's a pendulum, right? When the players maybe didn't have the intensity for whatever reason. I think the 15-day layoff is tough, and I think some of the game recognition that you hadn't been in a while. I think you got to raise the intensity when it's not there, and maybe pull it back when we're overhyped in other situations. So just trying to do what's best for the defense in that time frame, and give them a little energy if I can pull it into them and get them to play harder, right? I think that physicality showed up in the second half that we that's our standard and our expectation. I think we kind of left some plays on the table, physicality in the first half, so that's all I was trying to do is just get it out of them.
What are kind of the differences from being upstairs versus being in the booth? Do you prefer one?
Yeah, I mean, the game's changed significantly over the years, and iPads and things like that have definitely changed aspects of it. But when you're up top, you see a lot more. You're definitely in a much more controlled environment. When you're down on the field, you rely more on, your staff to kind of tell you a little bit of what's going on and how the play formations are developing. But you got to be around the players, and you can pull their energy up or down, or just communicate with them directly. So good on both ends. I think you got to play off your staff, and just because you're down now, you could be up later in the year.
You mentioned coming off the bye. I think a lot of the time the conversation is how good a bye can be, but for defense, how much does it maybe take that adjustment speed to get back up to the game level?
Yeah, I think the hard part of a bye week, specifically this one, coming off 15-day layoff, the environment and how hard we played in Louisville, you don't sit back and think about some of the highs and lows and the peaks and the valleys of the game. You only kind of really remember the highs. So you get into a game and you're just not used to the peaks and the valleys, and all of a sudden you start questioning yourself a little bit more. So I think that's all that happened, and I think once we got into it and used to it again, I think the energy showed right back up. But it's good. I'm glad we don't have another one this week.